Self-driving vehicles used to be a thing of the future just a few years ago. Today, they're among us. As technology improves, so does our speculation of the future. Initially, it seems like a nifty and helpful piece of technology, but I hope to convince you that it'll change civilization as we know it. In order to demonstrate the gravity of this technology, I'd like to go back to the 19th century and the construction of the first transcontinental railroad. The invention of the train allowed population of western states and increased trade throughout the U.S. Major benefits come from a more efficient transportation, not limited to the ones I just described. How would self-driving vehicles allow for more efficient transportation? Current road laws are meant to maintain a level of safety on the roads. If we reach level 4 autonomous vehicles by 2050, which I believe will happen, traffic accidents would essentially be eliminated. This is the chart that describes how advanced an autonomous vehicle is. Today we have pretty well made level 3 vehicles, and at our rate of technological improvement, it's not too much to ask for level 4 autonomy, which would be game-changing. This is where my vision of the future comes to form. Changes in infrastructure and traffic laws that would allow for up to double normal speed limits on large highways, essentially cutting long-distance travel in half. The change in infrastructure would be massive, and highways and cities would have to adjust to the change slowly. Looking into the past is one of the best ways to predict the future. The automobile was invented in 1885, and now the United States has over 4 million miles of road, almost 1/5 of the distance from Earth to Venus. As you may see, this change in infrastructure doesn't pose a huge challenge to us, not to mention the roads are already there to be adjusted for self-driving cars. Infrastructure aside, virtually everybody owns a vehicle today. Cars are a large expense to people, with insurance adding on top of that. Companies in 2050, such as Uber or Lyft, will drastically lower prices per ride, as there would be no driver to pay wage. As a result, many people would choose this commodity over purchasing their own vehicle. In my 2050 view of the future, neighborhoods will have central hubs with self-driving vehicles on standby and charging. The result? Fewer emissions and less natural resources spent on cars that would only be on the roads for 10 years anyways. Given that a pandemic is now a true reality for us and poses a risk for the entire world, I think we can all agree that the world needs better precautions to protect us against a new pandemic that could potentially happen in the future, in this case in 2050. If hypothetically a 2050 outbreak happened of a virus, at first it seems counterintuitive that my technology would be helpful in that scenario, because my technology appears to bring people closer together throughout a nation, or however far a car might have to go. It would increase the range in which a person can travel. And this would clearly make it so more people would come into contact with each other and so on. But in my case of the 2050 future, you have to remember that I believe that people will no longer have personal vehicles. So people will no longer rely on their own vehicles and travel to where they want to with their own vehicles. Instead, private sector companies like Uber or Lyft would maintain all of the transportation. And like I said, with these hubs, people would use these hubs to go to the grocery store or go on vacation or wherever. These companies would then be able to put their own quarantine in place, assuming the government or something would tell them to shut down the transportation. People would still be able to get groceries or any medical needs they have. But in the end, a stronger, more efficient quarantine would be put into place rather than trusting individuals to follow the guidelines put forth. That's why this technology would be beneficial in the case of a 2050 outbreak or any other outbreak.